So in this video, I will go over 10 explanations of the most common reasons your ex is checking up on you, as well as how to respond to the whole thing. So without any further ado, let's get onwards with the reasons, starting with number 1, your ex is simply nostalgic and that's why they check up on you. So maybe they checked up because they started to reminisce about the highlights of your relationship, the fun days, the amazing sex, the feeling of having someone who cares for them in their life. Stuff like that. And after one thought led to another, perhaps their mind got cluttered with, well, all these thoughts, and each thought fighting to get out and reminding your ex of what they lost in the first place, which obviously is you. And eventually the pressure got so intense that they could not help but check up on you. And that's the first explanation. The second one, simple curiosity. Nothing special here, okay? So whether or not your ex accepted your breakup and moved on, and whether or not you ended things on bad terms, there is a possibility that they are still curious about you. They may still wonder how you're handling the breakup, if you have your life in order, and perhaps most commonly, if you're still available. If your ex is interested in getting back together, they will likely use this information to gauge your level of attraction and decide on their next move with more certainty. So very important. As for the third explanation, your ex might just be simply lonely. Now, loneliness is probably one of the most challenging parts of a breakup's aftermath. And while some people aren't as affected by it as others, most of us still suffer from it to some extent. Now, there is a good chance that your ex, whether they're the dumpee or the dumper, is dealing with their own fair share of loneliness, and that may be why they got this sudden urge to check up on you. The fourth explanation is, well, your ex is jealous. Now, I've talked a lot about jealousy throughout my career, in my articles, in my videos, and even in my online courses and books. It's a nasty, useless emotion that plagues literally everyone pursuing reconciliation or wanting to get back with an ex. It can be the catalyst for your ex's checkup, especially if you're out there having a blast, you're hooking up, you're living your best life. So take note of that. That's when jealousy will be, when it comes to your ex, the highest. And that's probably, yet again, the reason they check up on you. Now, the fifth reason they check up on you is because they maybe want an ego boost. In other words, they want your validation, usually in the form of confirmation that they're still cared for, that they are still loved. They essentially want you to make them feel better about themselves, about the breakup specifically, to make them feel even worthy, lovable, and like they still matter. Or they simply want to vindicate their self-image if they know they've been a bit of a shitty partner, and that's why they want the validation, the ego boost, the quick pick-me-up, so to speak. Anyway, sixth explanation, your ex feels guilty, and maybe that's why they check up on you. So, how do you know that whether your ex feels guilty or not? Well, just ask yourself, were they a cheater? Were they a liar? Were they an abuser? Maybe all three, right? And maybe they're so ashamed of how they acted that instead of addressing their mess-ups, right, their fuck-ups, taking accountability for them, taking some goddamn responsibility, they just check up on you, partly to show interest and partly to seek forgiveness. Now, under these circumstances, in this context, a checkup, yes, it's a very immature reaction. And while it does mean your ex probably wants you back, I would encourage you to reconsider reconciliation in this case, because you don't want to give people like this a shot. Anyhow, the seventh explanation, your ex is angry. And this goes especially for intense, bitter, or feisty breakups. Like if your ex is insulting you, blaming you, being passive aggressive, or trying to guilt trip you, ignore or block them immediately. Because you only want to communicate with people who show you respect. Meaning, even if your ex does check up on you, maybe even multiple times, if they do it in this bitter, angry, pissed off way, you don't want to give them the time of day. You want to respect yourself enough to be able to pull this off. Anyhow, the 8th explanation, they just want to have sex. Now sometimes people, they're just really horny, and that's why they could be checking up on you, right? That's why your ex could be checking up on you. Now, if you're not looking for a hookup and you genuinely want your ex back, I'd recommend not jumping into a booty call. Instead, you should meet up with them, let things happen organically on a date. That way, you can make sure that it's more of an emotional impact, a better emotional impact for both of you. Explanation number 9, they want to stay friends. Now this rarely happens, especially if the breakup happened recently. Yet if your ex checks up on you for some form of a friendship, I would simply decline. You probably want them back in a romantic sense, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video, for example. So don't just settle for being friends. Stick with what you want. Be brave enough to stand by your desires, even we could call it needs in this case. Anyhow, the last reason your ex checks up on you is simply because they miss you. Now this is probably the most obvious reason, but it's still worth mentioning. If your ex checks up on you because they miss you, they may want to reconnect, maybe even rekindle things. Just be cautious that this isn't a manipulative move on their end in order to string you along and make you their plan B, their fallback option. So if the other dates reject your ex, that they can always fall back on you. Now, how do you respond if your ex checks up on you? First of all, what you want to do is you want to set a date with your ex. So when they check up on you, when they start a conversation about something personal, let's say, go and have that conversation, but only for a little bit, because you don't want to chit-chat over the phone or over text a long time, because that way things are gonna get very boring, very tedious, or at least they can get so. So what I would recommend is that once your ex checks up on you, once they reach out, have a short conversation with them, maybe like 3 to 5 messages back and forth, maybe like a 5-minute phone call if you're on a phone call. But then, as soon as reasonable, and without, being robotic about it, invite them on a date. Invite your ex on a date, phrase it that, hey, or frame it, that's the better word I'm looking for. Frame it as a date, as in, hey, I want to take you on a date. When are you free? Set a time and place for that date, and, get them to agree on it. And if your ex doesn't agree on it, if they reject you when you invite them out, or maybe they give you a wishy-washy answer like, I have to check my schedule, I'll call you back, maybe in the future, that's all a rejection. And you don't want to perceive those answers in any different way. So if you get a rejection or some maybe bullshit answer, just move on, go back into no contact, and when your ex reaches out and checks up on you a second time, do the same thing yet again, okay? Try to set a date. And if you get rejected, even then, stop trying to set a date in general, and only try and set one if your ex actually brings it up while you are conversing with each other. And always be sure your conversations are short, to the point, because this is just going to generate the most mystery, the most separation anxiety and sexual attraction, and there's gonna be also way less of a chance that you screw it up by saying something stupid, by letting your insecurities run the show, and making you do things like, I don't know, show up at your ex's doorstep unannounced at like 3 a.m. or something. Yeah. That's how I would handle the checkups. If you want to go deeper into this process, I suggest you download my free reattraction cheat sheet that you can get below this video. You can literally download it. It's a one-page PDF with all my tips and advice plastered on there. You can get it by going to the link in the description of this video. So if you'd like to go deeper into getting back with an ex, do that, grab my cheat sheet. But with that said, thanks for watching and take care.